Ken, I would love it if you could talk to us a little bit more about the risks of climate change to our water infrastructure. I think a lot of people across the country don't necessarily realize the vulnerability of our water infrastructure as we see more heavy downpours and droughts. And of course, we have the National Climate Assessment, which was released last week. Perhaps you could share some of the highlights of that and talk a little bit about what EPA is doing to help communities better prepare for the impacts of climate change.
Well, thank you. You're absolutely right. I think that people have to have a full understanding of the impacts on climate. And this is a debate, or I shouldn't call it a debate. This is a discussion that needs to be had, irrespective of your views as to what might be causing the climate change and increased temperature changes in the United States and across the world, because the impacts are there. And the impacts are noticeable, and they're noticeable today. I think that was one of the big elements of the assessment that people really needed to take from that. The assessment clearly demonstrates that we believe that the first and foremost place that people will observe in their daily lives effects from climate change will be in the water world. And it's going to vary depending on where you are and how water impacts you most immediately. But the assessment clearly showed that the number of precipitation events and the severity of precipitation events will increase, and ironically, drought will simultaneously increase. And probably even more ironically, both the precipitation events that will cause flooding and the drought can occur in the same areas because of the intensity of the events that occur combined with the infrequency of those events occurring. The number of short-term droughts is likely to go up, and the number of long-term droughts long-term droughts will get longer. As I mentioned, there will be the potential for more flooding, even with less precipitation. There will be seriously altered water demands and availability. Water availability, of course, can change based on drought and flood, but water demands is also another key component of this, and that is that as temperatures rise, you have higher rates of evapotranspiration, so you have water that may not reach a stream or a lake. You have water demands from the growing plants that are in the vicinity. We all know about the impacts on sea level rise. You need to go no farther than Miami Beach when they have what they call, I believe it's sunshine flooding, when there's not a cloud in the sky and the streets are flooded. And it's simply because of high tides and their proximity to the ocean combined with sea level rise. Storm surges are going to be more severe everywhere, because when you start with a higher level, all you need to do is add another couple of feet, and now your 2-foot storm surge is a 3-foot storm surge. And many coastal areas are not prepared for that. Coastal water supplies are imperiled, because again, as the water level rises, it puts more pressure on the freshwater resources that people rely. Again, Florida is a classic example. Floridians have to pump millions and billions of gallons of water into their aquifers to keep the salt water out. Increased air temperature. As many of you may remember from science, as the air temperature goes up, its capacity to hold water goes up. It leads back into the idea that what we're going to see is we're going to see more severe storms when those storms occur. Many of the communities, of course, along the coastal areas are going to be particularly vulnerable to climate change and sea level rise. But it's not just those communities. People are feeling it in other areas of the country as well. Last summer, Administrator McCarthy was out in Iowa at the Iowa State Fair, an event everybody should do at least once in their life.
Even if you're not running for president?
Even if you're not running for president. If nothing else, you've never seen rabbits or pigs as big as they have them there. And as she says, they also have the world's best pork chops. They're famous pork on a stick, which I think is healthier than a fried Snickers bar on a stick. But the real point I wanted to make is that as she was visiting with farmers out there, you don't have to have a discussion on climate change and the causes of climate change. What you have is a discussion of people who live and die economically based on what happens in the skies. And they know that their weather patterns are different. Yeah. A farmer who's been farming in Iowa for 50 years knows that his precipitation patterns are different and his water demands have changed. He wants to address that today, and he needs to address that today to stay economically viable. So I think that, as I said, climate change is a big discussion here in Washington, but its impacts on our water supplies and our water use and how water impacts us on a daily basis is here, it's now, it's today.